You ever wake up one morning, pour yourself a coffee, and find out your homeowners association has decided to throw a fancy wedding on your family ranch without even bothering to tell you, let alone ask? Yeah, that happened to me. I'm talking full-on wedding invitations, catering, flowers, the whole 9 yards right there on my property, which I hadn't even finished selling, and which was literally scheduled for demolition in a matter of days. Honestly, the nerve of some people, it just about takes your breath away. But that's how this whole wild saga started, and trust me, if you've ever tangled with a power-drunk HOA president, you're going to want to stick around for this one. My name's Alex Mason, and for most of my life, I've been knee-deep in commercial construction timelines, contracts, project schedules, dealing with folks who think they know everything because they once watched a half hour of HGTV, you know, the type. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for Brenda Carmichael, the queen bee of Oak Haven Estates HOA, a woman whose entire existence seemed to revolve around enforcing her own personal interpretation of neighborhood rules. Brenda's got this aura about her helmet hair that never moves, jewelry that rattles like she's smuggling wind chimes, and an attitude that says, "I'm not just in charge, I invented being in charge." For years, she'd been a minor pain, nagging me about my eyesore fence or the historically inaccurate mailbox on the ranch, which, by the way, predates her HOA by like 80 years. Now, the ranch Willow Creek had been in my family since before Oak Haven was even a name on a map. After my granddad passed, it just sat there, empty, a little more rundown every year. The house, let's be honest, was barely standing beautiful, in a should probably be condemned kind of way. I finally decided to sell on the condition that the buyer got a clean slate, meaning everything from the house to the old barn and sheds would be flattened and cleared by me before the closing. I'd already signed the deal, the demolition company was scheduled, county permits in hand, everything lined up. And then Brenda decided to play wedding planner. I found out the way you find out most horrifying things these days on Facebook. Someone had posted an ad, "Host your dream wedding at the historic Willow Creek Ranch Pavilion." And there in the picture was my barn cleverly photographed to look almost romantic if you ignored the broken windows and missing boards. Pavilion my ass, it was a barn and barely that. They even had packages, dates, a phone number to the HOA office, and wouldn't you know it, the big day they were advertising was set for June 14th. My demolition was scheduled for the 12th. You can probably imagine how fast I dialed Brenda's number when I saw that. She picked up, sounding like she was already annoyed with me, "Mr. Mason. What can I do for you?" And when I told her what I'd seen, she just laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, Alex, we just thought your property could be put to better use. It's for the community, really. And don't worry, making it look nice for the wedding could help your land sale." Free marketing. You ever have someone talk to you so smug you want to reach through the phone? That was me. I told her as calmly as I could that this was my private property being demolished in a matter of days, and she was out of line. She just sighed and told me to try being a better neighbor, then hung up. So I called my lawyer, Tom. Tom's been in the business for decades, gray hair, sharp eyes, can smell BS from a mile away. When I laid it all out, he actually whistled. "I've seen some HOAs get creative, Alex, but this is a new one. He told me to document everything, emails, Facebook posts, flyers, anything that might come up in court, and to get that demolition permit front and center because this was about to get ugly." "Let her dig her own grave a little deeper," he said. Sound advice. The next weekend, I swung by the ranch, and sure enough, there were fresh tire tracks in the driveway and a professional-looking wedding pamphlet left by the barn. Brenda wasn't just fantasizing, she'd hired an actual event planner ever after weddings and was taking bookings. That same day, I bought a handful of trail cams, the kind hunters use, and set them up all around the property, hidden in the trees, under the porch, anywhere Brenda and her crew might wander in. It didn't take long to pay off. Within 48 hours, my cameras caught Brenda in all her glory, sweeping across the field in her white Escalade, trailed by a couple of nervous event planners. She walked them through the barn, pointing out rustic beams, termite-riddled vintage floors, rotten natural light holes in the roof, just completely selling the fantasy. I made sure to back up every second of footage. Meanwhile, Tom kept poking at the HOA for a copy of the contract. They stonewalled. But then out of nowhere, my neighbor, Mrs. Gable, a retired teacher and secret Brenda hater, got wind of the wedding through her daughter who knew one of the bridesmaids. The grapevine delivered, she handed me a redacted rental agreement showing the HOA as the venue lessor, listing my ranch and charging $5,000 for the privilege, all going to Brenda's beautification fund. It was one of those moments where you don't know whether to laugh or start flipping tables. The best part: while Brenda's out here advertising my crumbling barn as a destination wedding spot, she sends me an official HOA violation letter about the hazardous and unsightly state of my property, demanding I make it safe for the upcoming community event. The hypocrisy was unreal. I mean, you could smear it on toast. With Demolition Day and the wedding date now a ticking time bomb, my lawyer drafted a cease and desist so beautifully savage it could have its own reality show. It spelled out in 5 pages of lawyer speak every law Brenda had bent, broken, or set on fire, attached the demolition permit, and warned that any attempt to enter the property would be met with cops and a lawsuit. We mailed copies everywhere: Brenda's house, the HOA, the wedding planner. Ever After Weddings immediately called Tom, panic in their voices. They were out fast. Brenda, though, she doubled down, sending me this smug little email about how I was sabotaging a cherished community event, warning that if I interfered it would be malicious vandalism and the bad publicity would be all on me. I swear the woman was unhinged. At this point, my main job was to make sure everything was legal and airtight. I had my demolition permit, every piece of evidence filed and ready, and Sal Moretti, the demolition guy, on standby. Sal's old school big gruff, been tearing down buildings longer than I've been alive. When I told him the plan, he grinned and said, "Boss, I've never demolished a wedding venue on wedding day before, but I'm here for it." The night before demolition, I barely slept. I kept running through everything: the deeds, contracts, footage of Brenda trespassing, that cease and desist letter with her signature. The trail cams even caught someone dropping off folding chairs in a fake flower arch in the dead of night. It was all so absurd I almost forgot to be angry. Morning of the big day, I parked out of sight and waited. Sal and his guys were already there, machines ready but hidden behind an old stone wall. Around 8 a.m., the wedding planner rolled up, different company this time, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. Then came the florists, the caterers, all looking increasingly confused as they stared at the half-collapsed barn and overgrown grass. Sal let them know politely but firmly that the place was closed and scheduled for demolition. Chaos started brewing. And then at last, the pearl-white Escalade. Brenda swept in, decked out like she was the mother of the bride herself, face radiating victory, until she saw Sal, then the excavator, then me, walking out with my folder of evidence. She lost it, full meltdown, screaming about sabotage, threatening to call the police, telling me she'd sue me for every penny I had. Sal just crossed his arms and looked amused. Brenda whipped out her phone, and sure enough, within 15 minutes, 2 sheriff's deputies showed up. She ran to them like they were cavalry. "He's destroying the venue. He's ruining the wedding," she sobbed, pointing at me like I'd kicked her dog. I calmly handed over my paperwork, deed, demolition permit, cease and desist, even Brenda's email admitting she knew. The senior deputy, a guy who looked like he'd rather be fishing, flipped through it all, then turned to Brenda and said, "Ma'am, this is his property. He's within his rights. You're trespassing. You and your guests need to leave." The look on Brenda's face, pure disbelief, was almost worth the hassle. Right about then, the wedding party started arriving. The bride stepped out all in white, her dad looking furious. Brenda tried to spin a new story, but I showed them the evidence. The father's face went from confusion to pure rage, but not at me. He rounded on Brenda, voice shaking. "You knew this could happen, and you went ahead anyway." The poor bride burst into tears. I genuinely felt bad for them, but this whole disaster was on Brenda. Sal picked that moment to start up the excavator, and with a roar, the bucket swung and caved in the porch. Brenda's shriek as her venue collapsed was honestly something to behold. All those wedding guests saw their fancy event turned into a pile of rubble right before their eyes. Social media blew up, folks live posting Mrs. Gable gleefully narrating the HOA group chat basically imploding. Brenda's reputation didn't just take a hit, it detonated. The wedding was canceled. The bride's family threatened lawsuits, and the HOA board finally woke up. Gerald, the board's timid accountant, found his backbone-produced emails showing Brenda had lied about my objections and misused HOA money for venue enhancements, read her cousin pocketing cash. By the end of the week, Brenda was forced out, shamed, and left skulking around Oak Haven in her sad Escalade, while the new board started actually fixing things, reviewing bylaws, auditing the beautification fund, shelving Brenda's pet projects. Willow Creek Ranch got cleared, the sale went through, and the new owner thanked me for cleaning house before he even moved in. Looking back, it's surreal how far Brenda was willing to go. She built her own little empire out of smoke and mirrors and never thought reality would come crashing in, courtesy of a bulldozer and a guy who'd finally had enough. So what's the wildest HOA mess you've ever seen? Drop your story in the comments. Let's see if anyone can top Brenda's wedding fiasco. And if you got a kick out of watching Entitlement Meet a Brick Wall, hit that like and subscribe. Stick around because I got plenty more stories where that came from.